Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica and our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where we take a look at some unported arcade games that never got home releases. We have a little bit of a Halloween October treat for you today, and that is Zombie Raid by Sammy. It was released in 1995, and the cabinets are considered pretty rare, although I looked on eBay and I could find one to buy for $600, so it's one of those games where the rarity is not really going to translate over into too bad of an expense. But it is your quintessential 2D light gun horror shooting game, and if you've watched my channel, you know I absolutely love arcade light gun games. I collect them, I play them in my house, and I had never actually played Zombie Raid before. This is a game that I always wanted to find, but I'd never seen a cabinet for, and I figured, hey, it's Halloween, why not cover it right now? Because all the other games on this playlist I've played at certain points in time. This is one that I'm new to. And I do like the intro here. You get the credits for the programmers and everybody involved in it, and I'm really not sure what I think about this game. Part of me really wants to love it, the other part of me hates it with a passion. And I'll kind of explain why I feel that way as the video goes on, but I'm really not 100% sure how I feel about this game. Now, as far as the art style is concerned, it's a real mixed bag. I love the backgrounds, that pixelated sprite art, everything going on in there. But then for some reason, the enemy sprites are so smoothed over that it's like a total mismatch visually as to what the game's trying to show you, because you get these great trees, you get the clouds, but as the enemies come up, they're impressive as far as sprites are concerned. The hardware is doing a really good job of pushing a lot of big sprites around, but they just don't really match the rest of the game. And I guess if you're going to be playing this game for, 40 minutes, which is about how long it takes to complete, I do wish that they looked better, because those crows are awesome, and I like the character designs as far as these farmers with suspenders and kind of those, quintessential prairie sort of looks to them. And I even like in the beginning you put your initials in and you find your own headstone. The game has a ton of really nice touches, but for some reason the sprites of the enemies you're fighting, and you will see more of them closer up later, they just don't look as good, and I kind of wish that they had just kept that pixelated style that they were going for. But I do really appreciate all the gore going on in this game. Pretty much every enemy explodes into entrails, blood, or some other sort of gore. They really pushed the violence with Zombie Raid, and as far as a horror game is concerned, that's something I always particularly like. I don't need green goo coming out of, humans. I want to see blood. I want to see that gore when I'm playing a horror game. Now, I will say as far as the difficulty is concerned, and this is on medium, if I played this in an arcade, I would have walked away by now, because I've probably already gone through like 4 or 5 continues. This game is just absolutely unforgiving in the amount of damage it's throwing around. There's projectiles everywhere, there's enemies that it seems like no matter how many times you shoot them, they are going to hit you. So I would say as far as all of the games that I played on Unported playlist, this is by far the cheapest quarter munching game I think I've ever encountered as far as arcade games go. And granted, because I am emulating it at home, that doesn't matter to me because I'm putting in virtual quarters and not losing any money. But if I played this in an arcade, I would have been absolutely pissed about the entire experience, and I definitely would have never seen the ending. But I do like those skulls in the background and that guy hanging. But again, you see that gigantic werewolf sprite. It's so smooth, it's so polished, where all the background just looks completely different. And I don't understand as a design decision artistically why they would have went with that. I mean, I know I keep talking about it, but it takes the game down a layer from that A tier light gun shooting game to something more in a B tier. I could have a ton of fun with this. You'll say that even the other character you meet doesn't have that same smoothing over him that the rest of the character sprites do. So it's a bummer, but I'll stop talking about it because we've discussed it long enough. But as far as the game is concerned, there's one thing about it that if you owned it would be great. If you were playing it in an arcade, it would be terrible. There are hidden collectible items somewhere in this game, and you need to collect them, and you need to remember what order you collect them in so you can insert these crystals later on to get the good ending. I played this game for over 40 minutes, and I ended up not even seeing the end. And I didn't have any desire at that point in time to go back and play it again. Because apparently, if you believe the internet, these items appear at random, and there is so much stuff in the background that's destructible, it would be almost impossible to collect everything. And while I do like arcade games that have different endings, I hate when you spend 40 minutes to get to an ending and they just tell you, oh, you made a mistake, you die now, go back to the beginning and start again. And minus that, it's still a really good game. I love the shooting mechanics of it. It's got some really nice soundtrack elements going on. I love this driving sequence where you can shoot tires out and the cars will crash and explode before having to shoot everybody. All of the enemy designs outside of that sprite smoothing look really nice. The lighting's good. All the transitions are really effective. And I guess it's just one of those things where I feel like this could have been an amazing game, but it ends up going down to a pretty decent game. And if you encountered it in an arcade with a difficulty, I would say it would be a pretty terrible game. So depending on how you encounter this particular release, Zombie Raid's either going to be great or it's going to be terrible. What I want you to do now is listen to a little bit of the soundtrack and the sound effects. They can be slightly grating. I hate the bullet noise, but otherwise it is fun to watch, and you'll see I took another continue there. But I'll be back in about a minute and we'll finish up Zombie Raid, and I'll kind of try to still with myself break down how I actually feel about it. But enjoy the playthrough, and I'll be back in just a second.
Are you okay? We must finish them off. Let's go.
So I think if I had an arcade board for this game, or I owned a cabinet, maybe I'd be more interested in really finding out all the intricacies of beating it with good endings and bad endings, because I do like all the destructible environments. I do love you see the skeleton go by here with all the gore and the blood on those pillars. You can shoot those handcuffs and you're able to release the hostages, and it doesn't really seem to do much but give you points, but I like how much interactiveness is in this actual game. There's so much stuff to shoot, the gore is great, the music is pretty good. There's a little bit of a balancing issue with the audio, which kind of drives me a little bit nuts, just in the way that I feel like the gunshots are kind of overpowering the music tracks in the background, because they're quite good, but it becomes pretty hard to listen to them. But then you have things here like all this stained glass, all those backgrounds. I love the art style that they're using. It's really descriptive, it's really colorful, and it kind of gives that like camp Hammer horror vibe that you like in sort of those like B-movie releases. And I even like the little bits of story that you get here, and your companion is going to do something very foolish in a moment, and ooh, his entire torso is just shot clean through. And it's little effects like that I love. The shrine in the background with the different cherub statues on the side, the fact that he's standing up now and his spine is severed in half, those all look awesome, and I love the game. And I think this is one that I need to probably play a few more times to really see if I can mesh with it or not, because while the boards are rare, they're not that expensive. So this is something that you could add to your collection and play on a PVM or a CRT relatively easily and relatively cheaply. But I still can't really tell if that's something that I actually want to do. And that's the thing with Unported Playlist. Every video that's come before this, I absolutely would buy that board if I could find it, and I felt like spending the money. This is the first game in the entire series where, even if I could find it for like $200, I really can't decide whether or not I'd actually want to buy it. And that's weird for me, because usually I'm able to formulate an opinion one way or another. But if you've never played it, check it out. It's a great Halloween game, and it's got plenty of gore. And if you could do us a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It takes a lot of time and energy to play each one of these games, so I really appreciate your guys' support. If you played this, tell me in the comments below what you think. I'd love to hear more opinions, see if they're differing from mine, if you guys feel the same way. But short of that, we will be back next Sunday with another Unported arcade game, and we'll be back on Tuesday and Friday with episodes as well. And clearly you can tell by now that October is definitely a horror theme, so we hope you enjoy that and you're having a great horror season. Hopefully you guys can go out and trick-or-treat in person if you want to. Hard year for that. But otherwise, that's Zombie Raid. I don't know how I feel about it. I'll have to think. See you next time. Bye-bye.